Glaciers of the World, written by Edward Allen Kurtz.
Contents at a glance.
What is a glacier? A glacier is a large mass of ice. A glacier moves slowly because of its heavy weight and because of gravity. Glaciers are formed when it snows year after year in the winter and doesn't melt during the summer. Glaciers are only found on land. Ice that forms on bodies of water like lakes and oceans are not called glaciers. Most glaciers are found in polar areas, meaning the areas near the North Pole and the South Pole. But some famous glaciers are found in other areas on Earth. Let's learn more about glaciers. Types of glaciers. Continental glaciers. The biggest glaciers are called continental glaciers, or ice sheets. There are only 2 of these on Earth. The first is found on the continent of Antarctica, and the second is found on the biggest island in the world, Greenland. These 2 continental glaciers contain huge amounts of fresh water. The part of a continental glacier that reaches the ocean is called an ice shelf. An ice stream is a part of a continental glacier that moves fast. A piece of rock that sticks up out of a continental glacier is called a glacial island or a nunatak. Types of glaciers. Alpine glaciers. The second type of glacier is called an alpine glacier. Alpine is a word that means things that are found in high mountains and is named after the Alps mountains in Europe. Alpine glaciers are also known as mountain glaciers and cirque glaciers. They form on the peaks and slopes of mountains. If the glacier is found in a valley, it is called a valley glacier. A glacier that crosses a mountain range, or a volcano is called an ice cap or ice field. There are glaciers on every continent on Earth except Australia. Types of glaciers. Tidewater glaciers. The third kind of glacier is a tidewater glacier. This is the kind of glacier that ends up in the sea and is found in many places like Antarctica and Alaska. Have you ever seen pictures of icebergs? An iceberg is formed when the ice of a glacier meets the sea. Big pieces of the glacier break off and fall into the sea. When these pieces break off, we say that the pieces calve. Because most tidewater glaciers calve high above the sea, the huge pieces make a very loud noise and a big splash when they hit the water. It sounds like an explosion. How glaciers are formed. Glaciers form in places where the amount of snow and ice that falls is greater than the amount that melts. The places where they form are called cirques. A cirque is like a valley between 2 mountains. Snow and ice form year after year on the 2 mountain slopes. Because of gravity, the snow and ice move down into the cirque. The snow and ice collect here and also compress. Every year more snow falls and it doesn't melt. The new snow presses down on the snow below it. It now becomes what is called glacial ice. Why glaciers move? The main reason that glaciers move is because they are very heavy and because of gravity. A glacier grows bigger and heavier every year, and there is often an opening at one end of the cirque or valley between the 2 mountains. When the glacier gets heavy enough, it overflows the cirque. This means that the glacier begins to slowly move downhill towards this opening or gap between the 2 mountains and starts to exit the cirque. Melting produces water at the bottom and helps the glacier move over the land. The speed of a moving glacier. The speed of a moving glacier varies from one glacier to the next. Some glaciers, like ones in Alaska, hardly move at all. Other glaciers, like some in Greenland, can move up to 10 feet per day. Many glaciers move about 3 feet per day. The speed of a glacier depends on several things, like how steep the slope is, how thick the glacier is, how much snow is falling, and the land under the glacier. Sometimes a glacier suddenly moves faster than usual. This is called a surge. After a surge, the speed returns to normal. What happens under a glacier? Because they are so huge and so heavy, glaciers leave some pretty big marks on the land underneath them as they move. This process takes hundreds or even thousands of years. The ice from the glacier erodes the land underneath it, and it carries gravel, rocks, sand, and soil with it as it moves. After the glacier has moved away from an area, the rocks and other things that it moved are left on the landscape. This area is called a moraine. Moraines are usually long, narrow ridges. Famous glaciers. The Perito Moreno Glacier. The Perito Moreno Glacier is located in Patagonia, an area in southern Argentina, in South America. This glacier is one of about 50 glaciers that are part of the southern Patagonian ice field in the Andes Mountains. This ice field is the third largest reservoir of fresh water in the world. The Perito Moreno Glacier is 19 miles long. It ends at a lake called Argentino Lake. Here it is 3 miles wide and about 240 feet high. This glacier continues to grow. Sometimes it even dams the Argentino Lake and separates the lake into 2 parts. Famous glaciers. The Marguerie Glacier. Marguerie Glacier is a tidewater glacier found in Glacier Bay in Alaska in the United States. It is 21 miles long. It starts on the south slope of Mount Root and flows into Glacier Bay. When it reaches the bay, it is about 1 mile wide and is about 350 feet high. Many cruise ships visit the bay, and passengers are amazed at the massive glacier. It is blue in color and cleaner than some other glaciers. This just means that there are less rocks in it. Marguerie Glacier is also famous for being a very active glacier for calving. Famous glaciers. The Furtwangler Glacier. Furtwangler Glacier is found near the top of a very famous mountain in Tanzania, Africa, Mount Kilimanjaro. What makes this glacier so amazing is the location of Mount Kilimanjaro. It is very close to the equator, while most other glaciers are far away from the equator and closer to the North Pole or the South Pole. This glacier used to be much bigger. Almost 85% of it has disappeared since 1912, when people began to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Scientists think that the glacier will probably be gone within a few years. Famous glaciers. The Aletsch Glacier. The Aletsch Glacier is the biggest glacier in the Alps. It is about 14 miles long and is found in Switzerland. Several other big glaciers are located nearby the Aletsch Glacier, and together they make up the largest glacier area in Europe. Many people like to visit this glacier, and it is fun to get to. There is a train that goes up the steep mountains and ends at a train station very close to the glacier. Visitors can leave the train station at the top of the mountain and walk on the glacier. Many people go for long hikes here. Famous glaciers. The Yulong Glacier. The Yulong Glacier is located in southwestern China. It is also known as Jade Dragon Snow Mountain. The view of this mysterious mountain from the gardens at the Black Dragon Pool is very famous. One of the highest trams in the world takes visitors up to Yulong Glacier Park. Many people come here to hike, and there is a stairway and path to make it easier to get to the top of the mountain. While some glaciers like the Perito Moreno glacier in Argentina are growing, scientists say that the Yulong Glacier is shrinking. Interesting facts. Glaciers cover about 10% of the Earth's surface. Glaciers are the largest reservoir of fresh water on Earth. Some glaciers in Greenland are almost 2 miles thick. Up to 15,000 icebergs are calved every year. The top of a glacier moves faster than the bottom because of the friction of the ice against the rocks and soil underneath the glacier. Ablation is the word used to describe the melting and evaporation that causes a glacier to get smaller. A retreating glacier doesn't move backwards. It means that it is melting and shrinking instead of getting bigger. In 1912, the ship called the Titanic hit a big iceberg and sunk to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Glaciers change the V shape of the valleys between mountains into a U shape as they move through the valley. The word glacier comes from a Latin word, glacis, which means ice. The study of glaciers is called glaciology, and a scientist who studies glaciers is called a glaciologist. The Bering Glacier in Alaska is the longest glacier in the United States. It is over 125 miles long. Animals like polar bears, seals, and walruses use icebergs that break off tidewater glaciers as a place to look for food and as a place to rest.